I uncovered my family's dark secret during a holiday gathering. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. The clinking of glasses, the soft hum of holiday music, and the smell of roasted turkey should have wrapped me in warmth. My family gathered around the long oak table like every year, laughter bouncing between cousins, my mother fussing over serving sizes, my father pouring wine like it was water. On the surface, it looked perfect, but beneath the glow of candles and fairy lights, something felt off. I noticed it first in the way my uncle flinched when my grandmother mentioned the old days. His eyes darted to my father, then quickly back to his plate. My aunt's laughter came a second too late, too forced, and when my mother caught me watching, her smile tightened before she quickly changed the subject. It nagged at me, but I pushed it aside, until I excused myself to grab more napkins from the hall closet. That's when I heard it. Two voices, hushed but sharp. My uncle and my mother. "She can't ever find out," he hissed. "If she does, it'll destroy everything." "She's getting too close already," my mother whispered back, her voice low and trembling. "We should have burned those papers years ago." My stomach dropped. Papers? Destroy everything? They were talking about me. I froze, clutching the napkins, my pulse pounding so hard I thought they'd hear it. "Keep your voice down," my mother snapped. "If your brother hears." And then silence. Footsteps approaching. I scrambled back to the table, heart racing, plastering on a fake smile as if nothing had happened. My hands shook so badly, I almost spilled the cranberry sauce when I sat down. But now the food tasted like ash. The laughter rang hollow. And every glance, every shared look between relatives felt like a secret I wasn't in on. I pushed my plate away, my voice unsteady. "What papers?" The room froze. Forks hovered midair. My mother's face went pale. My uncle nearly choked on his drink. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my father slammed his glass down so hard it cracked. His eyes blazed as he growled, "Who told you about that?" The room was so quiet I swore I could hear my own heartbeat. My father's glass still trembled where it had slammed against the wood, a thin crack zigzagging down its side like a warning. His glare pinned me in place, hard and unyielding. "Who told you?" he repeated, slower this time, his voice low enough to vibrate in my chest. My throat went dry. "No one. I overheard." His jaw tightened, his nostrils flaring. "You misheard. There are no papers. Nothing to discuss." My uncle shifted uncomfortably, eyes fixed on his plate. My mother's hand shook as she adjusted the silverware, pretending nothing had happened. But I wasn't imagining their panic. I wasn't imagining the way everyone else suddenly found their food fascinating, refusing to meet my eyes. Something was there. Something they all knew. "Dad?" I pushed, my voice quivering but steady enough to cut through the silence. "If there's nothing, then why are you all acting like this? Why are you so scared?" The air turned suffocating. My cousin cleared her throat nervously, muttering something about needing more gravy, but no one moved. Finally, my father leaned back in his chair, the candlelight casting harsh shadows across his face. "Because some things are better left buried," he said coldly. "Drop it. Now." The finality in his tone sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't just an order, it was a threat. But the more he tried to shut me down, the more the silence of the others screamed at me. My family was hiding something. Something big enough that the mere mention of papers cracked their perfect holiday mask wide open. I sat there, my untouched plate before me, my hands clenched tight in my lap. I didn't say another word, not then. But inside, a fire ignited. If they thought they could keep me in the dark forever, they were wrong. Later, when the plates were cleared and most of the family drifted toward the living room, I lingered by the table, pretending to gather dishes. My uncle slipped away down the hall, his shoulders hunched, a folded envelope peeking from his jacket pocket. And I knew, without a doubt, that the papers were real. I waited until the coast was clear, my pulse hammering in my ears, then followed him quietly, step by step, into the shadows. The hallway was dim, lit only by the flickering garland strung along the banister. I moved as quietly as I could, careful not to let the floorboards betray me. My uncle's figure loomed just ahead, his shoulders hunched as though the weight of that envelope was crushing him. He paused outside the guest room, glancing over his shoulder. I ducked into the shadows, heart thudding against my ribs. He hesitated, then slipped inside, shutting the door behind him with a soft click. I waited. Every second stretched like an eternity. Then I inched closer, pressing my ear against the door. Paper rustled. A drawer slid open. And then his voice, low and muttering, as if he were speaking to himself. Should have destroyed these years ago, before she starts asking questions. My blood ran cold. Me. I couldn't breathe. My hand hovered over the knob, torn between barging in and retreating before I was caught. But before I decided, the door creaked open. I stumbled back just in time to see him emerge, empty-handed now, his face pale and sweaty. He froze when his eyes landed on me. "What are you doing here?" He snapped, his voice sharper than I'd ever heard. I stammered. I was looking for the bathroom." His eyes narrowed, searching my face for cracks. For a moment, I thought he'd call me out, drag me back to the others, and expose me. But instead, he leaned in close, his breath hot with wine. "Stay out of things that don't concern you," he hissed. "Some secrets will bury you if you dig too deep." Then he pushed past me, his footsteps heavy on the creaking floorboards, leaving me alone with my racing pulse and the lingering smell of his cologne. I slipped into the guest room, every nerve screaming at me to stop, but I couldn't. Not now. The drawer was still slightly open. Inside, buried beneath old photo albums and yellowing wrapping paper, was the envelope. Thick, heavy, my name scrawled across the front in shaky handwriting. Hands trembling, I pulled it out. And that's when I heard my father's voice behind me, low and furious. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I froze, the envelope still clutched in my hands. My father's shadow filled the doorway, his presence so heavy it sucked the air from the room. His eyes locked onto the envelope, then onto me, burning with fury. "Put it back," he growled. My mouth went dry. "What is this? Why is my name on it?" He stepped inside, shutting the door behind him with deliberate slowness. The click of the latch echoed like a gunshot. I said, "Put it back." For a moment, neither of us moved. The garland lights outside flickered faintly under the door, but in that guest room it felt like the world had narrowed down to just us, the hunter and the hunted. My hands trembled, but I tightened my grip. "No, not until you tell me what's going on." His face darkened. "You don't understand what you're playing with. Those papers will destroy this family. They'll destroy you." Anger flared inside me, hot enough to cut through the fear. Destroy me? Or destroy the lies you've been telling all these years? For a split second, his mask slipped. I saw something raw flicker across his features, fear. Real, bone-deep fear. Then it was gone, buried beneath anger. He lunged forward, yanking at the envelope. I held tight, the paper crumpling between us as we struggled. "Stop," I shouted, my voice cracking. "Just tell me the truth." He ripped it free from my hands, his knuckles white, chest heaving. "The truth will kill us all," he spat, his voice shaking. "You think you want answers, but you don't. Some things you can't unlearn." The words hit me harder than the tug of the envelope. My father, stoic, immovable, always in control, was unraveling right in front of me. Before I could respond, the door creaked open again. My mother stood there, her face pale as porcelain, her voice trembling. "Stop," she whispered. "It's too late. She already knows." I spun toward her, heart pounding. "Knows what? What is it you're all hiding from me?" My mother's lips parted, but the words caught in her throat. My father shot her a warning glare, his jaw clenched tight. Then she whispered a single sentence that shattered everything I thought I knew. "She's not who you think she is." The room spun around me. My mother's words echoed in my ears, hollow and terrifying. "She's not who you think she is." I stumbled back a step, my pulse pounding so loud it drowned out the muffled chatter of relatives in the other rooms. "What does that mean?" I demanded, my voice breaking. "Not who I think I am. What the hell are you saying?" My father barked. "Enough." His face was crimson, his fists clenched so tight his veins bulged. "Don't say another word." But my mother didn't move. Her eyes, glassy with tears, locked onto mine. "You deserve to know," she whispered. "I can't keep lying to you." Lying. My throat tightened, my words coming out jagged. "About what?" She took a trembling step forward, her voice shaking. You're not our child." The world tilted. My knees nearly buckled, the air ripped from my lungs. For a moment I thought I hadn't heard her right, that my mind had twisted the words into something unrecognizable. But the devastation on her face told me otherwise. My father roared, "Stop it!" He slammed his fist against the wall, the sound reverberating through the room. "She doesn't need to know. Not now. Not ever." I couldn't breathe. "Not your child." My voice cracked, barely above a whisper. What does that even mean? Who am I then? My mother reached for me, but my father grabbed her arm, yanking her back. "You'll ruin everything," he hissed, his voice shaking with fury. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "It's already ruined. Look at her. Look at the damage we've done." She broke free of his grip, clutching my hands in hers. "We took you in. We raised you as our own. But you're not," her voice faltered. "You're not ours by blood." My head spun, all rising in my throat. My whole life, my name, my family, my identity, suddenly felt like it was crumbling beneath me. I jerked my hands away, my voice raw with disbelief. "You mean I've been living a lie? Every memory, every tradition, every holiday at this table, was it all fake?" Silence. My father's face was stone, my mother's eyes pleading. And then my uncle's voice drifted from the hallway, quiet but cutting through the tension like glass. "She deserves to know the rest. Tell her who her real parents are." The air in the room thickened until it felt impossible to breathe. My uncle's words hung there like smoke after a fire. "Tell her who her real parents are." I spun toward him, my pulse hammering. "Real parents? What are you talking about?" My mother's lips trembled, her fingers twisting together until her knuckles turned white. My father, on the other hand, looked like a cornered animal, eyes sharp, jaw clenched, ready to strike at anyone who spoke another word. "Don't," he warned, his voice dangerously low. "You'll tear this family apart." But my uncle shook his head. "No, the lie is what's tearing us apart. She has the right to know." His eyes flicked to me, filled with something I'd never seen in him before, pity. "You're not their daughter. You're hers." My stomach dropped. "Hers? Who? Say it." The silence stretched until it felt like I was drowning in it. Finally, my mother whispered a name I hadn't heard in years, one that sent a shiver racing down my spine. "Evelyn." The room tilted. Evelyn, my mother's estranged sister. The one no one ever spoke about except in hushed tones. The one who had disappeared from the family years ago after some scandal no one ever explained. She had you when she was very young," my mother said, tears streaming down her face. "She wasn't able to raise you. So we took you in. We gave you our name. We wanted to protect you." "Protect me?" My voice was sharp, broken. "Protect me from what?" Her gaze faltered. My father barked, "That's enough." But I stepped closer, my whole body shaking. "From what?" My uncle's voice was heavy, quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. "From the truth about why Evelyn disappeared and what she did before she left." My knees buckled. My chest felt like it was caving in. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or run. And just as I opened my mouth to demand more, a crash echoed from the dining room. Dishes shattering, voices shouting. The rest of the family had heard. The crash from the dining room jolted me like a gunshot. My mother gasped, clutching her chest, while my father cursed under his breath and stormed toward the noise. My uncle and I followed, and when we entered, the sight froze me in place. The festive table that had once been filled with laughter now looked like a battlefield. A platter of ham lay overturned on the floor, mashed potatoes splattered across the rug. My cousin stood pale and wide-eyed, shards of a shattered wine glass scattered at her feet. But it wasn't the mess that stole my breath, it was the faces. Everyone was staring at us. They'd heard enough. "What's going on?" my aunt demanded, her voice sharp as a knife. "What do you mean she's Evelyn's child?" My heart thudded painfully in my chest. My mother's face crumpled, but my father stepped forward, his voice booming. "Enough gossip. Sit down. We are not discussing this." But the room was already unraveling. My cousin spoke up, her voice trembling. "So it's true? She's not really your daughter?" Whispers spread like wildfire, fragments of disbelief and shock filling the air. My father slammed his hand on the table, rattling the silverware. "She is ours in every way that matters. That's all anyone needs to know." But I couldn't stay silent anymore. My voice shook, but it cut through the chaos. "I'm not yours by blood. Evelyn is my mother. Isn't that right?" Gasps rippled through the room. My aunt pressed a hand to her mouth. Someone muttered a prayer. My mother broke then, sobbing openly. "Yes," she whispered. "It's true. Evelyn is your biological mother. We took you in to keep you safe. Safe from what? I demanded, my throat raw. The room erupted, voices overlapping, accusations flying. Some relatives demanded answers, others defended my parents, while a few just sat in stunned silence. The warmth of the holiday glow had been replaced by a storm of betrayal. And then, cutting through it all, came the chilling voice of my grandmother. She hadn't spoken all night, her frail hands folded neatly in her lap. But now her eyes, sharp as steel, locked onto me. You think the truth will set you free, she said, her tone icy. But if you keep digging, you'll wish you never knew Evelyn's name. The room fell silent again. My skin prickled, and a cold dread washed over me. Because in her voice, I heard not just warning, but fear. The air was so heavy, I swore even the Christmas lights dimmed. My grandmother sat at the head of the table like a queen stripped of her crown, her wrinkled hands folded neatly, her voice calm, but edged with something colder than winter frost. You were never supposed to know, she said, her gaze fixed on me. We buried Evelyn's name for a reason. Every muscle in my body went rigid. My father muttered, "Mom, stop." But for the first time in my life, she ignored him. She was troubled. My grandmother continued, her words deliberate, each one landing like a stone. Even as a child, she lied, she manipulated, she hurt people. By the time she was 16, we couldn't control her. And then, when she turned 18, her voice faltered for a fraction of a second. She disappeared with a man twice her age. A ripple of shock moved through the room. My aunt shook her head. "Mom, please, don't." But my grandmother pressed on, her eyes never leaving mine. She came back 2 years later. Broken, pregnant. Said she wanted nothing to do with the child. Said she couldn't. That's when your parents, she glanced at my mother and father, stepped in. My chest tightened. My mother wept silently beside me, her shoulders trembling. My father's stare was locked on the table, jaw clenched, refusing to meet my eyes. I whispered, "So she abandoned me?" "No," my grandmother said sharply, her voice cutting through the whispers. "She gave you up. There's a difference." The words rattled inside me, making my stomach churn. Why? Why didn't she want me? No one answered. The silence screamed louder than any explanation. Finally, my uncle broke it. "Because Evelyn wasn't fit to raise a child. You don't know what she was capable of." My pulse quickened. "Then tell me, what did she do?" My grandmother's eyes flickered, and for the first time, I saw fear in her expression. Real fear. "Some sins," she said softly, "should stay buried with the people who committed them." The table went dead silent. Even the youngest cousins, usually giggling under the table, sat wide-eyed, sensing the gravity in her tone. I pushed back my chair, the legs scraping loudly against the wood. "No," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "You've all lied to me my whole life. I deserve to know everything." And then, from the far end of the table, my cousin, who had been quiet all evening, spoke for the first time. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it silenced the room. "I saw her once," she said. "Evelyn. And if what I heard that night was true, she didn't just abandon you. She might have killed someone." All eyes snapped to my cousin. She shrank under the weight of the stairs, her fingers knotting in her lap, but she didn't take the words back. I leaned forward, my voice tight. "What do you mean killed someone?" Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. "I was little, maybe 7. It was years ago. I woke up one night at Grandma's house and heard voices outside by the barn. I thought it was Dad, but when I looked out the window, it was Evelyn." The room went dead silent. "She wasn't alone," my cousin whispered, her eyes darting toward my uncle. "There was a man with her. I couldn't see his face, but they were arguing, screaming." My uncle's hand clenched into a fist, his knuckles bone white. "That's enough," he barked. But my cousin pressed on, trembling. I heard a thud, then silence. When I looked again, the man was on the ground. Evelyn was standing over him, shaking. And then she saw me watching. A chill shot down my spine. What did she do? Tears welled in my cousin's eyes. She smiled, like she wanted me to see. And then she put her finger to her lips, like she was telling me to keep quiet. Gasps rippled through the room. My aunt covered her mouth. My mother buried her face in her hands. "That never happened," my father snapped, his voice shaking with fury. "She imagined it. She was a child." But my cousin shook her head violently. "No, I know what I saw." And the next morning, The barn smelled like bleach. I told Dad, but he swore me to silence. He said Evelyn was gone and we'd never speak of her again. The words struck me like a hammer. I turned to my uncle, his face gray and rigid. Is it true? Did you cover for her? He didn't answer. His silence was louder than any denial. I stood, my chair scraping harshly against the floor. So you've all been hiding this from me? You raised me, knowing my real mother might be a murderer? You let me believe I belonged in this family, when all along you've been terrified of her shadow. The walls of the dining room felt like they were closing in. My breath came in ragged gasps. Around me, the family argued, some shouting that my cousin was lying, others whispering that they'd always suspected. And then my grandmother's voice, frail but steady, sliced through the chaos. You don't understand, she said. That man wasn't a stranger. He was one of us. My heart slammed against my ribs. One of us. The chatter around the table died instantly. Every relative froze, their faces caught between shock and dread. My grandmother's eyes were glassy, but her voice was steady, as if she had carried this secret for so long that finally releasing it was both a relief and a curse. It wasn't some stranger in the dark, she said slowly. It was your Uncle Peter. The room erupted. Shouts overlapped. Chairs scraped against the floor. My aunt screamed, "That's a lie," while another cousin covered her face in horror. I stood frozen, trying to process the words, the name. Uncle Peter, the brother no one ever mentioned. The one erased from family photos. My mother sobbed, shaking her head. "Mom, please, don't." But my grandmother pressed on, her voice trembling now. Peter found out what Evelyn was doing. The drugs, the lies, the stealing. He threatened to expose her. That night in the barn, she snapped. My cousin gasped. I knew it. I saw him on the ground. I saw her. I staggered back, gripping the edge of the table. So you're saying my biological mother killed her own brother? My uncle? The words tasted bitter, poisonous. No one could prove it, my grandmother said quickly, desperation flickering across her face. When we went to the barn, his body was gone. Evelyn was gone. All that was left was the bleach and the silence. We told the neighbors Peter had moved away. We buried him in words, not in earth. My father slammed his fist on the table, his eyes blazing. Enough. We don't know what happened. We don't know if he's dead. Stop filling her head with poison. But the damage was done. The lie unraveled like thread, and every face at that table showed it. They had all carried this weight, whether in silence or suspicion. My hands shook. So all my life you let me sit at this table, laugh at Christmas, open presents under the tree, while knowing my real mother could be a killer? Tears blurred my vision, but fury sharpened my voice. And you lied to me. Every single one of you. The silence that followed was suffocating. Until my uncle, the same one who had tried to hide the envelope, spoke again, his voice hoarse. You want the truth? He said, his gaze heavy on me. Then you need to know this. Evelyn didn't disappear that night. She came back, and one of us helped her. The words hit me like ice water. She came back, and one of us helped her. The room exploded into chaos again. Voices collided, shouting, denying, demanding. Some cousins cried, others swore they knew nothing. But all I could hear was the pounding in my head, each beat whispering, she was here. She's closer than you think. Who? I demanded, my voice cracking as I slammed my hands on the table. Who helped her? My uncle's face was gray, sweat trickling down his temples. His lips pressed tight, like the words were a lock he'd sworn never to break. But my grandmother's eyes darted across the table, and I caught it, the flicker of guilt in my aunt's expression. Her hand trembled as she reached for her wine glass, spilling half of it on the tablecloth. It was you, I whispered. Her eyes snapped to mine, wide and wet. No, she started, but her voice faltered under the weight of the stares. My father roared, don't say another word. But it was too late. The truth was clawing its way out. She showed up at my door. My aunt blurted, tears spilling down her cheeks. Weeks after Peter, after that night, she begged me not to tell anyone. She said she had nowhere else to go. My stomach twisted. And you sheltered her? Her shoulders shook as she nodded. Just for a few days. She was frantic, covered in scratches, talking nonsense about people following her. I didn't know what to do. I thought she'd turn herself in. But she didn't, I said bitterly. No. My aunt's voice cracked. One night she was gone, left without a word. and I never saw her again. The room buzzed with gasps, curses, disbelief. My father's face was thunderous, his fists slamming against the table so hard the dishes rattled. "You swore to keep that to yourself," he bellowed. "She's my niece," my aunt shot back, her voice shaking but fierce. "I couldn't keep lying when she's sitting here, begging for answers." My head spun. The walls seemed to close in around me, the holiday decorations suddenly grotesque in their cheer. If Evelyn had come back once, what stopped her from returning again? And then my cousin's voice, soft, trembling, cut through the noise. "What if she already has?" The room went still. "Last week," my cousin whispered, "I saw a woman outside the house. She was watching from across the street, and she looked just like you." Her words sank into me like ice. "She looked just like you." The room went silent again, but not the heavy, suffocating silence from before. This was electric, buzzing, alive with fear. My cousin's hands trembled as she spoke, her eyes darting toward the frosted window, as if expecting to see the figure still standing there. I forced myself to ask, though my throat felt raw. "When? Where exactly?" "Last week," she whispered. "I was walking home from school. It was late, almost dark. She was standing across the street from this house, under the lamppost. She didn't move, didn't say anything, just watched." My stomach twisted, a wave of nausea rising. "And you're sure it wasn't just someone passing by?" My cousin shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. "I swear, she had your same eyes, the same way of tilting her head. I thought I was imagining it, but when I blinked, she was gone." A shiver ran down my spine, so violently I gripped the table to steady myself. "She's dead to us," my father snapped, his voice a whip across the room. "If you saw someone, it wasn't Evelyn. Don't be ridiculous." But no one echoed him this time. No one defended the lie. Instead, a low current of whispers spread, fear and doubt curling around the table like smoke. My mother's voice broke the tension, thin and trembling. "What if she never left? What if she's been nearby all along?" The thought lodged in my chest like a blade. If Evelyn had been watching us, watching me, then every moment of my life had been a stage she observed from the shadows. I glanced at the window, the snow outside glowing faintly under the moonlight. The reflection showed my pale face, wide eyes, and for a split second, I swore another shadow shifted in the glass. I blinked hard. Nothing, just darkness. But the sense of being watched didn't leave me. I turned back to the table, my voice trembling but louder than I expected. "If she's out there, I'm going to find her. I need to know who she is, what she's done, and why she left me." "No." My father's voice thundered across the room, final and furious. "If you go looking for her, you'll bring ruin to this family. She's poison, and she'll drag you down with her." I clenched my fists, my chest burning. "Maybe, but I'd rather choke on the truth than keep swallowing your lies." And just as the last word left my lips, a loud knock echoed at the front door. The knock echoed through the house like a gunshot. Once, twice, 3 deliberate raps that made every head at the table snap toward the front hall. No one moved. Even the kids, usually restless and giggling, sat frozen. The only sound was the crackle of the fireplace and the faint jingle of a Christmas song playing from the radio in the kitchen, mocking, out of place. My chest tightened. My father stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. Nobody answered that. But the knock came again, harder this time. My mother flinched, clutching her napkin so tightly it tore in half. My grandmother whispered something under her breath, a prayer maybe, her hands trembling as she clutched her rosary. I swallowed hard. "What if it's her?" "No," my father snapped. "It's probably a neighbor or carolers, or," his voice faltered, unconvincing even to himself. The knock turned into pounding, each strike reverberating through the floorboards. "I'll do it," I said, standing before anyone could stop me. My legs shook, but something deeper than fear pushed me forward. If it was Evelyn, if she had come back after all these years, I had to see her with my own eyes. "Sit down," my father roared, but I ignored him. Claire, my cousin who'd seen the figure, whispered, "Don't go alone," but I was already crossing the hallway. The house seemed to stretch endlessly as I walked, every shadow elongating, the holiday garlands swaying slightly as though the air itself was holding its breath. My hand reached the doorknob, cold metal against sweaty skin. For a moment, I hesitated. What if my father was right? What if opening this door didn't just unravel a mystery, but unleash something I couldn't put back? Behind me, I felt every pair of eyes boring into my back. Waiting, dreading. I twisted the knob. The door creaked open, letting in a blast of icy air. And there, standing on the porch, wrapped in a dark coat, her hair wild from the wind, was a woman I'd never seen before. But the moment our eyes met, eyes that mirrored my own, I knew. My breath hitched. My mother gasped behind me. It was Evelyn. Alive. And she smiled. For a moment, no one breathed. Evelyn stood in the doorway as if she had walked straight out of a grave. Her face older, sharper, but her eyes unmistakably mine. That smile lingered, not warm or kind, but knowing. "Hello, family," she said softly, her voice smooth, almost mocking. "Did you miss me?" Gasps rippled through the room behind me. My mother pressed a hand to her mouth, sobbing. My father's face twisted with rage, veins standing out on his neck. "Get out," he growled, stepping forward. "You're not welcome here." But Evelyn ignored him, brushing past me into the house. The cold air followed her like a ghost as she slid off her coat, revealing a simple black dress. She looked like she belonged at a funeral, not a holiday gathering. "I see you've kept my secret well," she said, her eyes sweeping the table. "Until tonight." The silence was suffocating. Finally, I stepped forward, my voice shaking. "You're my mother." Her gaze landed on me, softening for a moment. "Yes, and you've grown beautifully, despite all their lies." She glanced at my parents, venom in her tone. "They stole you from me." "That's not true," my mother cried. "You gave her up. You didn't want her." Evelyn's laugh was low, bitter. "Is that the story they told you? That I abandoned you?" "No, sweetheart. I was forced. They ripped you from my arms and made me disappear." My head spun. Lies and counter-lies tangled in the air, each word heavier than the last. I turned to my father, desperate. "Tell me that's not true." His jaw clenched. He didn't answer. Evelyn stepped closer, her eyes locking onto mine. "Ask them what happened to Peter. Ask them why his name is never spoken. They fed you a fairy tale while burying the truth." The room erupted. My aunt shouted, "You killed him." My cousin cried, "I saw you that night." Voices overlapped, accusations, denials, sobs. The festive dinner had dissolved into a trial, and Evelyn was both the defendant and the executioner. But Evelyn raised her hands, commanding silence. "If you really want the truth," she said, her eyes narrowing, "I'll give it to you. But you may never look at this family the same way again." The weight of her words pressed down on me, suffocating. My chest burned, my throat tight. And then Evelyn leaned close. Her whisper so sharp it sliced through me. "Peter isn't dead." The key turned in the lock with a metallic groan that echoed through the house. My hands were slick with sweat, my whole body trembling. Behind me, the family held its breath. My mother sobbed into her hands, my father's jaw clenched, and Evelyn just stood there, smiling like she had already won. The door creaked open. A wave of damp air rushed out, smelling of dust, mildew, and something else, something human. I stepped inside, my legs heavy as stone. And then I saw him. A man sat slumped in the corner, his wrists chained, his beard overgrown, his clothes torn and stained. But even through the years, I knew that face. "Peter?" My voice cracked. His head lifted slowly. His eyes, hollow yet still burning with life, met mine. "You came." The room spun. My brother, my family's dark secret, was alive. Not dead, not gone. Alive, but broken, hidden away like some shameful relic. I dropped to my knees beside him. "What did they do to you?" His voice was hoarse, every word scraped raw. I tried to tell the truth, about Dad, about the money, the things he did at work. He said I was dangerous, said I'd ruin everything. So they locked me here, said it was better for the family. Behind me, chaos erupted. My aunt screamed, my cousins cried out. My father shouted over them all, his face twisted with rage. "He's sick. He's lying. You don't understand what he's done." But I wasn't listening to him anymore. I was staring at the bruises on Peter's arms, the scars on his wrists, the haunted emptiness in his gaze. Years of lies, gaslighting, and silence, all to protect a reputation, a name, a fortune. I turned back toward the family, my voice shaking but sharp as a blade. "You monsters! You locked away your own son. My brother." The storm outside howled. rattling the windows as if the world itself demanded justice. Peter's hand gripped mine weakly, his voice a whisper. "Don't let them silence you, like they silenced me." And in that moment, I knew everything had changed. My family was destroyed, their secrets bleeding into the open. The truth was out, and nothing would ever be the same again.